Welcome back to Twisted Metal Breakdowns. I'm going to continue on with Brimstone, aka the Preacher, who is a highly delusional religious man, let's say. He drives a 1970 Chevrolet El Camino with high control, high speed, medium range armor, and a special with okay damage on it. But when it comes to his special weapon is a suicide bomber, which is actually a projectile. It's kind of like a religious fanatic. And what you are really supposed to do is you are supposed to fire it at the other cars. Now it will, the suicide bomber will kind of like home in, but not completely. But if you have like 3 points of damage, either like right in front of the opponent will do like a medium amount of damage, hitting the back of them will do the same medium amount of damage, but if you actually get a direct hit, the suicide bomber will explode on the roof of the car, doing massive damage. So it's kind of a reliable special, but not as much as like Sweet Tooth's missile barrage or anything other than that. But yeah, biggest thing I could say is to try to freeze the opponent and then hit him with the special. So let's move on to the story.
The Lord does work in mysterious ways. He giveth and he taketh away. So it was with my freedom. In my years alone in that dark place, I would often hear a voice calling to me from within.
You are my chosen one, Jebediah. You are my child, here to do my bidding.
Truly, I believed there would be no escape from the demon inside me. I wasn't even a real preacher. I was an evangelist, rejected by the church. I didn't have the strength to fight the demon alone. But one day, I was given a chance for salvation. His name was Calypso. He came to me with a proposition. If I won his contest, he would reveal the truth. It had been 2 years since the beast had entered my mind, controlling my actions, making others believe I was responsible for those killings. But now I had a second chance. I accepted the offer willingly. All I had to do was win, and a path back into the light would be opened unto me. When a man is lost in darkness, it is wondrous indeed how his mind will find shelter in memories of the past. I thought back to that fateful night. I had been approached by a young couple who brought to me their child. I was to perform one of my most important duties, an exorcism. But the beast was too powerful, even as I ministered to the child. The demon brought its foul influence upon me and entered my mind. My soul was trapped. All I could do was cry out inside as I tore that church apart. The demon's hatred raged all around, killing everyone in the church. Countless millions of years it had been hounded by the warriors of God. And now it was going to make me pay.
Open up in there! This is the police!
And then the creature abandoned me, right when I needed it the most.
Get your hands in the air! Do it! Do it now!
Every waking hour since, I've feared the demon. But now I have a second chance. When I win this contest, I know the Lord will welcome me back with open arms. contest was mercifully at an end. I had triumphed over the darkness. I visited Calypso. It was time for him to prove my innocence and clear my name. And yet, he seemed hesitant. I made no promise to clear your name, he said. I only promised to show you the truth. And the truth, he said, was that the demon wasn't real. The voice inside me was a figment of my imagination. My God, it was all in my mind. The exorcism? It wasn't an exorcism at all. It was simply a baptism. It was Judgment Day in that church, and I was the angel of death. The truth had been delivered indeed, but not by God, but by Calypso. He was right. I was, as they say, insane. My whole life I'd been trying to silence that voice. I even performed rituals to show my loyalty to God in hopes that he would save me. But nothing worked. A man cannot hide from himself. There is only one path before me.
Okay, so moving on to Roadkill. He drives a 1970 Dodge Charger with high control, high speed, medium range armor, and a special. He's basically got the same specials or the same stats as the Preacher. Now, there's no idea who this guy really is because he suffers from amnesia. But let's talk about his in-match weaponry. Okay, so he's got a charge missile. So basically what you do is when you select the special, you have to hold down the button to actually charge it as you would fire it. The longer you charge it, the more powerful it will get. And it's kind of like a lock-on missile. It's against slower foes like Sweet Tooth and Manhunter, or Manslaughter, Manhunter, it works relatively well. Against smaller, faster opponents like Mr. Grimm here, it can be kind of challenging, so you kind of want to get him on a straightaway. It also depends on which level you're fighting in. If you're fighting in a massive map, opponents are going to be a little harder to hit. But in a closed-in space like the drive-in theater or snowy roads, you should have no problem hitting him. But yeah, that's long story short, that's the gist of what Roadkill has to offer. So his story is kind of a strange one because he doesn't have any idea of who he is. He has no idea of like what he was before he actually found himself locked up in Blackfield Asylum. Like the only thing he really has to go on are the massive amount of tattoos on his like covering his body. But the one thing he does know is that with the amount of tattoos he has, he's probably wasn't a very good person to begin with. So why don't we just take a look at Roadkill's story.
The doctors said it was some kind of amnesia. No one could figure out who I was or where I came from. There were some days I wondered if I actually existed at all. All we had to go on were the tattoos. Somehow, they were the key to the person I was. And from the looks of them, you'd think I was a nasty piece of work. I was beginning to think I'd never discover the truth. Then, the truth just kind of waltzes in through my door. Guy's name was Calypso. He ran this contest. He tells me he can clear everything up. I tell him to get lost before I break his freaking neck. But then he shows me this picture. Me, in a suit, all nice and neat, like I was actually someone important. He said there was this whole life just waiting for me. All I had to do was win his contest. How could I refuse? Now I had a chance to get the answers I needed. Let's face it, who wants to spend the rest of their life as a nobody? I must have been out for hours. At first there was just darkness, but then I started to see things. Bad things. I remember now. I ran with this gang. At first, we were small time. Random beatings, robbery. We were nobodies. So we came up with a plan. The bomb was choice. Freaking huge. When that building came down, who knew what kind of viruses and diseases would spread across the world? It was glorious. Instant extinction. Finally, for the first time, we were important. We were feared. And that's it. The memories end there. I don't think I like the man I'm turning out to be. Contest. Now it was time for the truth. I went to see Calypso. Hopefully he would know who I was. He did. Jesus. I was FBI. I'd been deep undercover for the last year trying to bust a doomsday cult in Midtown. Calypso said I was a hero. That night I rushed back into the building. I had to get that bomb as far away as I could, but there just wasn't time. So I took the quick way out. Explosion knocked me out. Now I remember. I am a hero. A hero undercover agent standing in front of number 2 on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. In other words, a dead man. Calypso thanked me for being such a great contestant. Then he said goodbye. I remember now. I have a family. God, I was just starting to remember.
Okay, moving on to Crazy 8, who drives the Cord 810 Hot Rod. Now, his name is technically No Face because he doesn't have an identity anymore. He's age 30, fiercely aggressive, and you'll find out why during his story. His car has got high control, high speed, medium range armor, and his special attack is okay if you know how to use it. It's quite difficult to learn how to use it, but I'm going to tell you how to do it now. So his special weapon is like a electronic charge, which is basically an area of effect. So it doesn't necessarily target anyone, it just kind of does its own thing, but it's up to you to basically stay close to the opponent. Now, when you use it, you have to actually fire use the button to fire, but as it's shocking the opponent, you have to keep hitting the fire button in order to maximize the amount of damage that you're doing. This is probably the reason why I don't use Crazy 8 a lot. It's just, against bigger opponents like Minion or like Sweet Tooth, Manslaughter, it's not ideal. There's much better weapons that you can use throughout the stage. And when it comes to an enemy like Warhawk, you're better off using somebody else because his special attack doesn't do anything to Warhawk, which makes him one of my least favorite characters in the Twisted Metal franchise. But enough about Crazy 8 and his shitty weapons, let's watch his story.
When the lights are low in this place, you get plenty of time for thinking. It beats the alternative, listening to the screams that come from every direction. Must have been years I was left alone in that darkness. But when you look like I do, it's probably for the best. My life was over, but the man who did this to me, to my face, he was still out there. But one day, I had a visitor. Guy's name was Calypso. He ran this freak show contest he wanted me to be a part of. If I entered and won, he said I'd taste the payback I'd been dreaming about. I just wanted to find the son of a bitch who destroyed my life. How could I refuse? In the nut house, I was always drugged up. I never thought about what happened to me, but now that I was out, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was a boxer. You never heard of me. I was strictly small time. One night, I went up against this hotshot fighter from out of state. I never even saw him coming. I got tore to pieces before the end of the first round. My jaw was shattered. My nose was broke. I was a mess. And some of the guys from the gym said they knew this surgeon who could fix me up, good as new. Maybe there were better doctors in town, but none that I could afford. Besides, I'd heard this guy was a big fan of the fights. Too bad old Doc made the mistake of betting on me that night.
$20,000, McCutcheon. $20,000 I lost on you tonight.
As I went under, all I could hear was the scraping sound of the Doc's blade and this blaring opera music he played while he worked. When I woke up, my face felt like it had gone 15 rounds with a semi-truck. The Doc did a good job. I'll give him that. From what I hear, I went a little crazy. They say I busted up the hospital trying to find the guy. In the process, I tore up 6 innocent people. But now that I'm out, there ain't no place for the Doc to hide. So what do you know? I was the winner. Calypso's contest was over and I was the champ. And true to his word, the man delivered the goods. I got my prize. He even had a special bonus lined up for me. It fit perfect, like we was meant to be together. I had seen fear in a man's eyes before, but this was different. This was special. I think that doctor, he knew payback was going to be brutal. It's funny, after all these years, I still got some snap in that left hook of mine. You know, that was the first time I ever knocked someone out with one punch.
And last up is Specter, who drives the 1969 Chevrolet Corvette. What's to say about her? Yes, it's actually a female this time. While the control is high, the speed is high, the armor is less than average, and the special is kind of OP for being mid-range. Now, her name is Bloody Mary, and there's a good reason for that. she's got a lot of issues. Let's just say a lot of issues. But her special is pretty OP for anyone who's played Twisted Metal in the past. You could probably you probably know what I'm talking about. So her special is a ghost missile. Now, what does that mean? The ghost missile is probably one of the most OP weapons in the game, next to probably Sweet Tooth and Minion, all of them. Now, when you fire up the missile, you kind of have to hold it down while and it will bring up a target reticule. Now, when you lock onto an opponent, it doesn't matter how far away, and you fire the missile will travel through solid matter and instantly hit the opponent, regardless of what they do. It's like, as soon as you lock it on, there is nothing the opponent can do to get away from it. As far as I know. Because, like, the missile will actually go through the ground, it will go through buildings, it will go through roads, and it will hit the person that you are locked onto, regardless. So, yeah, Specter has been in a lot of Twisted Metal games over the years. It's differed from character to character. Sometimes it's a guy, sometimes and now it's a female. But let's talk a little bit about Bloody Mary's story.
First time I knew I was different, I was just a little girl. There was this boy I really liked. One day I finally got up the courage to tell him. He pushed me down in the mud. He called me ugly. I've been alone ever since, always waiting and hoping for that certain someone to come my way. I remember right after college, all my friends with their perfect boyfriends and their society weddings. Every time one of those bitches got hitched, I'd freak. Eventually, they had to put me on meds just to calm me down. But then one day, in the asylum, I had a visitor. The gentleman's name was Calypso. He said if I won his game, I'd never have to be alone again. He said he knew where I could find my true love. How could I refuse an offer like that? After all, no one as pretty as me deserves to be alone. I was asleep for hours, dreaming about weddings. In fact, one very special wedding. I was one of the bridesmaids as usual. My friend Kristen, she was the one getting married. Can you believe what she did? She actually had the nerve to throw the bouquet to me, that little bitch. Looking back, I'm not sure it was such a good idea to come off my medication.
Mary, quite contrary. You're just an ugly fat cow.
I think that day, my heart just snapped in two, and I think my mind did the same. So I grabbed the closest thing I could find, and then I wasn't really sure what I did. If I wasn't going to have a man, then no one was. I dragged Kristen's fat, ugly body into one of the dressing rooms and bolted the door. Standing there in Kristen's dress, I realized I was the most beautiful bride I had ever seen. When I win this contest, Calypso will find me a man who thinks so too. I'm sure there were quite a few sour faces in town when all the girls learned I'd won the contest. I demanded my prize from Calypso. I wanted to meet my true love. Calypso delivered. It was my darling, my sweetheart, and he was gorgeous. Calypso told me he had to make a few modifications, but what man doesn't need a little adjusting here and there? As he held me in his big, strong arms, he leaned in to whisper something in my ear. To this day, I still can't believe what he said.
I will never love you.
My God, I was so close. But this wasn't my true love at all. He wasn't anything like the man I thought he was. Certainly not good enough for a girl like me. My Prince Charming is out there. I know he is, and I'll find him. Even if I have to go through each and every man, one at a time.